Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's start off talking about Dynamite last night. Well, actually, the majority of this video is going to be about AEW Dynamite last night, and one of the biggest talking points coming out of last night's edition of Dynamite on TBS was the AEW debut of former Ring of Honor star Brody King. Yes, Brody King. It's been speculated for weeks that he is signed to AEW. It's now been made official. Last night, he made his AEW debut on Dynamite, aligning himself with Malachi Black. It's just been tweeted in the last maybe hour or so. The All Elite, Brody King is All Elite graphic, so it's official. Brody King is officially on the AEW roster. Now, after weeks of teasing an addition to his House of Black, Malachi Black finally brought in his new ally, former Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling star Brody King. Now, just before he debuted, there was a match between Matt Hardy and Penta El Zero Miedo, with Penta pulling out the victory. He then, after the match, called out Malachi Black by name, challenging him. Then, as I guess if you ask, you shall receive, the lights went out completely before turning back on, revealing Malachi Black standing in the corner. He then attacked Alex Abrahantes and began brawling with Penta. This brought out the Varsity Blondes, of course, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, who have been feuding with Malachi Black in recent weeks with the black mist in Julia Hart's eyes, etc. After they all were beating down Malachi Black, Julia Hart climbed onto the ring apron and asked for the three men to stop beating down Malachi. This is when Black began to laugh maniacally, and the lights went out once more as the crowd was chanting Brody King, Brody King. When they turned on this time, it was indeed Brody King standing in the center of the ring. With Malachi Black's help, he dominated the three AEW stars and made a big impact for his first appearance with the company. And though they may be referred to as the House of Black as a complete stable, implying that more people are going to join, I'll touch on that in a second, the announcers were specifically calling the duo the, quote, Kings of the Black Throne. The AEW Twitter page has given them the same title, so it looks like that's going to be their team name going forward. Now, as I mentioned, a report from December of last year noted how Brody signed with the company when Ring of Honor announced the company's hiatus. It was also said by CM Punk during the AEW media scrum that he was seeking the right time to bring Brody King into AEW, so now I guess is the right time. What I will say before I actually talk about what I thought of the segment itself is it me? Is it just me, or is Julia Hart joining the House of Black? It feels inevitable, doesn't it? Because why would she ask him to stop? I found that very bizarre. They're beating down Malachi Black and she gets up on the apron and goes, stop, stop, stop. And then suddenly out comes Brody King. I think, because think about it. We saw the vignettes a couple of weeks ago. The vignettes had Malachi Black spraying the black mist into someone's eyes. It was obviously Brody King's eyes. And he said, now you are a king. Now you can be a king, or you're a king no more. I can't remember the exact phrase verbatim, but he sprayed the black mist into the eyes of Brody King. He did the same with Julia Hart a couple of weeks ago, and then she just asked them to stop the beatdown. Julia Hart's becoming part of that faction, and it's a good thing. I think she's got talent. She's obviously got a great look as well. I think there's a limit with the Varsity Blondes, and I think that her being involved with the House of Black, Brody King, Malachi Black, I think works. And the segment itself, the match itself between Matt Hardy and Penta was okay. It was a TV match. It was what it was. I don't think it was a complete sellout at all last night at AEW, and the crowd at points was quiet, but it was fine. Hardy was in his home state. But Brody King looked great. He looked great coming out. He did the cannonball, I think, onto Griff Garrison. Just nearly killed him. He squashed his head completely. They did their awesome finisher, which is an inverted sort of suplex by Malachi Black, like an X-plex, just basically threw Griff Garrison up in the air, and Brody King turns it into a slam, which was great. So I thought it was great. And as we've said time and time again, when it comes to AEW, just the amount of tag teams they have, and the tag team matches at their disposal is incredible. Now you add the Kings of the Black Throne, you've got Red Dragon, you've got obviously the tag team champions Jurassic Express, you've got the Lucha Brothers, you've got the Young Bucks, you've got FTR, you've got Sting and Darby, you've got all of these tag teams, and I'm probably missing a ton there because they've just got that many. It's exciting. So Brody King's a great pickup for AEW. I know people will talk about, but there's more, more tag teams, more people on the roster. I know, but I thought the segment was great. I think there is way more to this House of Black stable or faction that I think is really exciting. So I'm really excited to see where it pans out. Like I said, I think Julia Hart's going to be involved in that. I really do. Now, speaking of CM Punk, last night CM Punk had his match against Wardlow on Dynamite on TBS. CM Punk got the victory just. Essentially, going into this match, going into this episode, it was really the biggest match on the show, you could say, was CM Punk versus Wardlow, arguably Wardlow's biggest match of his career, certainly his biggest match since his first match, which was that steel cage match against Cody Rhodes way back when. That was in 2020, wasn't it? So it was a big match, and Wardlow, to be honest, dominated. Absolutely dominated him. You know, after a bit of a back and forth match, then Wardlow starts to hit his powerbomb symphony. I think maybe did 8 powerbombs, in total, but he did, I think, 4 or 5, and he was going to beat Punk. He had his foot on his chest. The referee was about to count 1, 2, 3, and it was MJF. MJF gets up on the apron, says, no, you've got to do more, I think commentary did a good job in selling the story here. I think if you were in attendance live, you'd have been a bit maybe slightly confused, but commentary, specifically Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, I think did a really good job basically saying that MJF is just so afraid. He's so afraid of CM Punk that the victory over Punk last night for Wardlow, it didn't really matter. He wanted to end CM Punk so CM Punk doesn't eventually face MJF. So they did a really good job in explaining that. So basically, Wardlow just beat the hell out of Punk after that, even though he hadn't beat. He did more powerbombs, hadn't beat again, but MJF's going, no. Powerbombed him outside of the ring through a table, and eventually he's going to do another one, but CM Punk did the Bret Hart Diesel Survivor Series 95 finish, where essentially he's going for the powerbomb. CM Punk does the small package, gets the victory. The finish wasn't great. And don't get me wrong, I like the Bret Hart finish against Diesel. The reason why that works so well is because Bret Hart did the small package. Legitimately, it looked like Diesel could not get out. He had him completely tight, and the referee count was pretty quick. This one was different. You know, CM Punk didn't really have the small package completely tight in. Aubrey Edwards' count was really slow, really slow. It was one of those counts to 3 that was way longer than 3 seconds. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. A count to 3 should be 1, 2, 3. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3, because that's longer than 3 seconds. So the finish itself, I saw a lot of people saying the finish sucked. I think in principle, in thought, the finish would have been good, but the execution wasn't great about it. And that's why only, I guess, Bret Hart can get it over, right? The excellence of execution. But I think they did what they wanted to, in that they had CM Punk beat an upcoming talent, but make no mistake, Wardlow looked unbelievably strong coming out of this. I don't think it hurt him at all. I know some people going, see, CM Punk said he was going to put over all this young talent, but he's beating all of this young talent. You're telling me CM Punk's first loss in AEW should be against Wardlow on a random episode of Dynamite? Of course it shouldn't. Of course it should be against someone like MJF at a pay-per-view, and it might be. And I think they managed to achieve both things, what they wanted to. Wardlow looked strong as anything. They absolutely protected him, because he didn't even lose because he was stupid. This isn't a case of Wardlow beating the hell out of CM Punk and then, but because he's a big musclehead, he lost because he's an idiot. No, he had CM Punk beat. He was going to beat CM Punk. It was because of MJF and MJF's ego that he lost, basically implying that when Wardlow gets rid of MJF, he's going to be able to beat people like CM Punk. So I think the logic and the psychology there made sense. I do think the logic and psychology there made sense. So again, the execution of the finish maybe didn't work for me, but I enjoyed the match. I thought Wardlow looked great. I felt bad for Punk because he took about 1 million power bombs, and it continued the story. Later on in the evening as well, this was quite humorous, when MJF came out and said, right, next Wednesday I'm going to give you the match you want. You want it, you've asked for it. CM Punk versus Shawn Spears. Even they at this point are acknowledging that nobody cares about Shawn Spears. It's incredible that he's less over than he was in WWE, which is quite staggering considering one of his friends is an EVP of the company, but he's almost become the running joke at this point. But Punk, I don't think, will have the issues that he had with Wardlow against Shawn Spears. The only thing they could probably play up is that CM Punk is so beat up and beat down from this match against Wardlow this week that maybe it might be a bit of a trouble for him, but it won't be. CM Punk definitely isn't having his first loss to Shawn Spears. Could you imagine? That would be madness. On Dynamite last night as well, we saw the return of Lance Archer. Yes, Lance Archer is back in AEW after a hiatus through injury. Now, Hangman Page appeared on Dynamite last night to address the AEW fans after his series of matches with Bryan Danielson. He put over Danielson, spoke about the 90-plus minutes he spent in the ring competing against each other, and noted that it was all worth it to still be the AEW World Champion. And then he was interrupted by Dan Lambert, American Top Team's Dan Lambert, after Hangman said he was looking for a new challenger. And I thought, here we go. Here we go. Not only are you going to have Scorpio Sky competing for, or Ethan Page competing for the TNT Championship when Cody's back, but also you're going to have one of them competing for the World Championship. Too much Dan Lambert. And I'm not even a massive Dan Lambert hater. I'm not. But I thought, here we go. Anyway, Dan Lambert came out, and I'm not sure I was properly into this, it must be said. I don't mind Dan Lambert, but basically he came out and said that he wasn't putting down Hangman Page's ability in the ring. He wasn't putting down his recent matches with Bryan Danielson. His biggest issue was that he was acting like a cowboy. I'm like, oh, really? The angle is you don't like Hangman's version of a cowboy? He was saying that there were real cowboys in pro wrestling like Dory Funk Jr. or Terry Funk or Dick Murdoch or Stan Hansen, all these kind of people. Hangman Page said, no, I grew up on a farm and I had cattle and I turned down a 6-figure contract to come and start up a new company and I won the AEW World Championship, and it was a bit of a back and forth. Anyway, after this back and forth about being a cowboy, out comes Lance Archer. Now, this is the first appearance by the Murderhawk Monster after months of being off television after suffering a neck injury. Now, it looked like he was going to pick up in his previous feud with Dan Lambert. Of course, in the past, Lance Archer had hit the blackout on Dan Lambert, and there was a bit of a feud between them. And Dan Lambert basically crapped his pants. He was saying, no, please, no. And instead, he shoved Dan Lambert out the way and began attacking the AEW World Champion Hangman Page. The AEW commentators expressed their shock as Archer did this, finishing a blackout slam to Hangman Page onto a steel chair. So it looks like the next challenger, I guess, for Hangman is going to be Lance Archer. He isn't even in the rankings, and AEW is a bit of a stickler for the rankings, so I'm not sure how they'll do that. I would think, what's the next big one coming up? Beach Break in a couple of weeks. I don't know if it'll be a title match or it'll just be a regular match, but I think that'll be the next challenger for Hangman Page. And he needs it, to be honest. He needs to build up victories. Every feud can't be a big feud like the Bryan Danielson feud. I think the next big feud for him is going to be Adam Cole. Adam Cole is the number one ranked singles wrestler on the male side of things in AEW right now, so it makes sense that the next match would be Hangman versus Cole. When that would be, I don't know. Certainly he's not going to be at Beach Break because Cole's still involved in the whole Undisputed Era versus the Elite kind of situation. But they've also got to do it before Kenny Omega comes back, and Omega's going to probably be back in February, maybe March, maybe around Revolution time. I don't know. So maybe it's a case of Hangman versus Cole is probably going to happen beginning of March Revolution. That's where Kenny Omega comes back, makes his return, and you have the confrontation between Cole and Omega, or the Elites versus the Undisputed Era, whatever they're going to be called. And in the meantime, just before that, like I said, maybe at Beach Break is when you have Hangman versus Lance Archer. So look, it's just an opponent, I think. It's just an opponent. And the bump on the blackout on the steel chair looked pretty brutal, it must be said. Speaking of Adam Cole, he has been aligned with his real-life girlfriend, Britt Baker. I don't think Britt Baker's officially joined the Elite, but Adam Cole is certainly involved in several factions at this point. So the show last night kicked off with Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly coming down to the ring. Cole wanted to talk about his streak of dominance since realigning and mentioned he's undefeated since debuting in September. The Young Bucks then interrupted, and they had a bit of a back and forth between Red Dragon, or the Undisputed Era, and the Elite, talking about there was some tension between the groups. Out came the Best Friends, and there was just this giant brawl. And once they were brawling, Chris Statlander got in the way of Adam Cole, and Adam Cole's not going to hit a woman, right? Well, from behind, a woman hits a woman, that being Britt Baker. Britt Baker attacks Chris Statlander, and they had this big pose down in the ring with Adam Cole, with the Undisputed Era and Britt Baker, and the Young Bucks seemingly being this super elite Red Dragon faction. Well, later on in the evening, it was announced that it was a challenge, that Adam Cole and Britt Baker have challenged Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy for next week's show. They did the spot as well where Adam Cole was going to have the Young Bucks both kiss him on the cheek. Instead, it was Britt Baker that kissed him on the lips. So, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I was a massive fan of the opening segment. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on in there. I felt like they were trying to tell multiple stories at once, and it felt clunky. One of my issues just with this show in general, and it's been a bit of an AEW issue from the beginning, is that because they try and fit so much in, it feels like every segment features some kind of a brawl or some kind of people running down to the ring. How many times we saw it last night was ridiculous. We saw it so many times. Even the opening segment and the ending segment, it all ended. It all ended with a brawl. Everything's a brawl in AEW. Obviously, I have no problem with Adam Cole and Britt Baker being paired together. It's real life. It reflects in pro wrestling, which always leads to the best stuff. Adam Cole's just mixed into a lot, and I think that was basically part of the problem, is that there is a lot going on. You've got Adam Cole basically saying, I'm undefeated in singles action, so you know that he's going to face Hangman Page at one point. You've also got this sort of thing going of, is he the leader of the Elite, or is he the leader of the Undisputed Era? Red Dragon and the Young Bucks going to face off. Now you've got Britt Baker involved. Now you've got a feud with the best friend as well. There's just a lot. There's a lot. And I'm not saying it's difficult to follow, but it's just kind of... And I don't have a problem with the pacing of the show, as it were. It's just there was a lot going on. But I'm excited for the mixed tag next week. Maybe I would have preferred them to sort of spend maybe a little bit more time building it up, but... There's a lot going on. Speaking of next week, we've got a few things announced for next week's show. As I mentioned, you've got Shawn Spears versus CM Punk. You've got that mixed tag team match of Adam Cole and Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy. Serena Deeb's going to be facing Sky Blue. She defeated Hikaru Shida last night. Cody Rhodes, as you can see right there, the TNT champion, returns to AEW after being absent with the COVID exposure the last few weeks. Of course, Sammy Guevara retained his interim TNT championship last night, so when they're going to have their match, I don't know. Probably at Beach Break. Probably that might be the way that they go. I'm not sure about that. And also you have Sting and Darby Allin versus The Acclaimed, which is a big one considering that The Acclaimed are the number one ranked tag team right now. I would assume Sting and Darby remain undefeated in tag team action. If they do, does that make them number one ranked? And if that's so, I think we might end up seeing Sting and Darby Allin maybe versus Jurassic Express for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The thing is, when do they do that? Revolution? I guess they could probably stretch it out. We're nearly midway through January. Revolution's beginning of March. They could probably stretch it out. And what a 12 months that would be for Sting, because I think Sting and Darby would win. And what a 12 months that would be. Sting's first match inside of an AEW ring was that cinematic street fight at Revolution last year. 12 months later, he wins the AEW World Tag Team Championships with Darby Allin. That'd be pretty cool. So I think that might be the direction that they're heading in. Finally, we have some news when it comes to Rampage on Friday. Of course, it was taped last night. We're not going to get into spoilers here. We never do when it comes to Rampage or anything like that. But we have the card announced for Rampage on Friday. So Adam Cole will be in action. He's in action a lot on Rampage. He's Mr. Rampage, isn't he? He's going to be facing Trent Beretta, continuing the Best Friends versus the Elite Undisputed Era storyline that's going on at the moment. You've also got Chris Statlander, Red Velvet, and Layla Hirsch versus Nyla Rose, Penelope Ford, and The Buddy. They did a backstage segment on Dynamite last night where they teased this dissension once again with Layla Hirsch and Red Velvet and Chris Statlander. Layla Hirsch is obviously turning heel. That's going to happen. I don't know if it happens on Friday, but it's happening very soon. You've got Shawn Spears versus Andrew Everett, which is just to give Shawn Spears a victory before he faces CM Punk on Wednesday and loses. But you've also, the main event's going to be the AEW World Tag Team Championships. We're going to have Jurassic Express defending the titles against the Dark Order. There was a backstage segment on Dynamite that set this up. Of course, Jurassic Express are going to win. They're not going to win the titles on the debut episode of Dynamite on TBS and then lose them just like days later on TNT on Rampage. But should be a good match, and it's just a victory, I guess, for Jurassic Express there. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community below. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.